Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Pigeon. I'm a master's student at the University of San Diego and a partner for the National Center on Restorative Justice. Today I'll be talking with 4 individuals from the South Burlington and Williston Community Justice Centers, or CJCs. I'll be talking with Lisa Bedinger, the director of South Burlington CJC, Shawn Burke, the South Burlington Chief of Police, Patrick Foley, the Williston Chief of Police, and Cristalee Sweeney, the Executive Director of the Williston CJC. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and I hope you enjoy it.
All right. So welcome to our conversation today. I'm so excited to learn more about the CJCs and the work that you all are doing in the community. I'm here with 4 folks today, and I'm very excited to hear about some of their work. So we're going to go ahead and just dive into it so I can learn from you. We're going to start with our first question, and that is really just an introduction. So please share your name, the CJC you work with, and your role.
I'm Lisa Bedinger. I'm the director of the South Burlington Community Justice Center.
And I'm Cristalee Sweeney, the director of the Williston Community Justice Center.
I am Chief Patrick T. Foley, the chief here in Williston and part of the Williston Community Justice Center.
My name is Shawn Burke, and I'm the police chief in South Burlington, Vermont. And the Community Justice Center is completely embedded in our police organization, which is a little unique.
Amazing. Thank you all for sharing those introductions and taking the time out of your very, very busy days to have this conversation and share more about the work that you're doing. We're going to start out first with Lisa and Cristalee. Would you all be able to share a brief story that shows how you use RJ and the impact in your work? And we'll start with Lisa if you would like to go first, and then Cristalee, you can share right after.
We got a referral for some violence within a family, and the family are new that are, some of them are well known to law enforcement and don't have a lot of trust of law enforcement. And we have a team of cultural brokers and interpreters in our community that we called to partner with on this situation. And what ended up happening is, because those people are respected people within the communities they serve, he ended up actually just doing a restorative process with this family. He talked with each of them. He got them together to talk as a family and really did a restorative process. And we were never even involved in that case. And because he's part of that culture, he had the ability to have that kind of conversation, which those of us outside that culture, they wouldn't have even opened the door. And so then we were able to partner with him because he knew enough about what we do that he could lead the process. And that was the first time we've done anything like that. And it was a major success.
Many, as Lisa said, one of the many stories that we could share, but one set of stories that stand out really uniquely, I believe to be, really representative of the work is we live in a town where there's a lot of protesting that takes place. We have an immigration site in town, and there's lots of protests and civil disobedience things that take place. And so there was an agreement, if you will, of safety plans that were put into place with a group of folks who were planning a protest and worked in conjunction with the Williston police. And as a result, didn't follow through on that. And so working with the Williston police and the state's attorney's office, we had a multitude of those cases come through the CJC, where we got to really understand on a deeper level perspectives and attitudes and thoughts and different beliefs that were coming to the table. And through the restorative process, Chief Foley and some of his officers were able to share the impact of breaking that agreement and what that really meant for our community. Also hearing from the responsible parties why they were there, what they believed in, what went wrong, how it went wrong, and then really bringing those different ideas together to the table for repair to be made. And as a result of that, I feel that our community was strengthened. We gained new perspectives, we gained appreciation for different sides of the story. Repair was made, and we gained a couple of volunteers and a lot of supporters of the restorative process, as well as for the way that the Williston police treated them and the information that the chief was able to share. So at the end of all of these cases that came in, of all 22 people, they were all satisfied with the outcomes.
That's really great to hear, and really amazing that the chiefs are part of this process and the officers are part of this process. And so for Chief Foley and Chief Burke, why is restorative justice an important approach to utilize in your work? And Chief Foley, if you'd like to share first, then we can go over to Chief Burke right after.
Oh, good afternoon. I feel the process of restorative justice allows us a better hands-on attitude towards dealing with the offenders. In the court system, the old theory of, lock them up, throw the keys away, and wipe, shake our hands off and the dust. And this way we have a better control of how the perpetrators are being dealt with. But I think it allows the victims a better voice, a louder voice in the process. And it's not where you have a timetable. I know we have contracts with the offenders we're dealing with, but in the criminal justice system, it's the delays, it's the hearings, it's the motions and all here. This way, I think it provides a better conduit for the victims. And that's who we're there for, is the victims, to have a better say, get more answers to them, and get their voices out to the criminals, the people who are creating the crimes, and make them more responsive to understand what they're doing and how it affects the individuals. Williston is and just like South Burlington, we have major box stores here, and it's just like a breeding ground for thefts and all that. And that's one of our major crimes. And I think it provides us more of an avenue to get the people responsible for committing those crimes a chance to be, reckoned with, and hopefully, they do not repeat the same crime. And it gives them a better say in the criminal justice process.
Question, just to expound on what Chief Foley has shared, I find the restorative process very effective and very powerful because of the circle of accountability. It lends voice to the affected party. It holds accountable the responsible party, but also in a way that is informed, like how that person's action in that moment has impacted the affected party, but then more importantly, the broader community through the panel work, and then giving voice and also perspective to our neighbors about, what are the issues of crime and disorder in the community, and how should we as a community deal with those? And I think that's a powerful paradigm shift from when we would just simply refer every case to district court and expect a judge to be able to preside over that, and then somehow through their sole perspective, give voice and consideration to how the community was impacted. So I think that, the entire power dynamic of the circle of accountability is probably the most compelling reason to be in this work.
Thank you for sharing that. I also want to recognize the importance of both of your participation and the police departments as a whole's participation in this process. And so for Lisa and Cristalee, how does partnering with local police departments benefit the individuals you work with and the process as a whole? And if we want, we can start with Lisa again and then go over to Cristalee right after.
Sure. Because the staff of the South Burlington Community Justice Center are police department employees, we are co-located in the same building, and it allows us to have relationships with the officers that we wouldn't have if we were part of an external organization. So if there's cases that either we have questions on or an officer's like not sure if it's a good referral, we can just talk in person or sometimes on the phone and talk about the case and think together about it. And that is so valuable to have those relationships to work together around the cases.
So I agree with what Lisa just said. We are also housed within the Williston Police Department, and I think that it really brings a lot to the relationships that the CJC staff, but also our volunteers, are able to build with the police chief and with the officers of the department. And I think what that also shows is the collaboration for our greater community to see that we can and do work in partnership. And I think also one of the greater benefits of being, embedded within the police department is also the the way that responsible parties and victims see that collaboration. For many of our responsible parties, they've never had any positive interaction or relationship with law enforcement before. And so having law enforcement be a part of that process with us really, I think, shines light on the way that law enforcement really can and does care for a lot of these people who come through our department. And I think it shifts some of those beliefs and attitudes in the community. And then I also really feel that working with the police department also highlights our shared responsibility and the collaborative efforts that it takes to really bring out the best of our community members. And recognizing that we all have made mistakes and that we all can learn and grow from them. So I think it strengthens relationships. I think it strengthens trust, and it strengthens accountability.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cristalee, and thank you all of you for sharing. It really is amazing the impact that you all are having on the community. And I'm curious, and I'd love to hear from all of you, what have you found to be the most important strategy for building relationships between community organizations and local police? Because obviously this is a conversation that many folks across the nation are having. And folks are wondering, especially those coming to the Institute, of how we can really build that relationship.
Happy to tee up this portion of the conversation. I think it's super critical in policing to meet your neighbors before the crisis, to have the relationship, and it's a two-way street. So what I beg for is a citizen that watches a video from afar about a poor police encounter to have the relationship with the police department or the CJC to pick up the phone to figure out what is our local policy on an interaction like that. How would our police department contend with an issue such as that? And I think that in Vermont, we're so small in general that from almost a procedural justice lens that we can actually raise the legitimacy of policing if we just simply have more predictable outcomes for folks. And I think that, also the restorative process lends to that as well, because the community actually has a front row seat to how cases are being adjudicated, for lack of a better term.
I was thinking about, as somebody to partner as an external agency with a police department, being part of the same agency is probably the most powerful. But I also think being really smart about what is police culture, what are police norms, and how do you be cultural competent about police culture as you're partnering? Like, it's a two-way street.
I would add that a few of the things that I think have been really important, and I think that continue to be important, is having conversations and building those relationships, kind of what Chief Burke had just shared, not just building relationships with the people who come through, but who live in our community, who comes to visit or work or recreate, and having relationships with them. And then taking that a step further and educating our community on what is restorative justice, what does it mean, right? What are the outcomes, what are the benefits to the responsible parties, to the impacted parties, to the general population? And I think that when we are able to engage in conversation and educate and train, I think training has been a real important part as well. Training the not just the police chiefs, but the officers in what restorative justice can and is able to bring forward has been really important. And one other thing that I think is unique that we do, and I know other CJCs have done it, is hosting a get to know your CJC. So many people don't know that restorative justice exists in our community, and certainly don't know who the volunteers might be. So holding an event where they can come and learn about the CJC, who volunteers, how can they volunteer, how many cases come through the CJC, each year, what do they look like, what are those outcomes, and to have people who have been through the process and who have been impacted parties share those experiences has been a real important part of raising the awareness and building those connections and relationships.
Yeah, I think it's important that the community that we work in understands what the role is of CJC. We do a presentation on race data collection, and the last one we did, Cristalee brought up, to include CJCs in that as an alternative, to going to the courthouse. The other thing is, I think we're neglected on is that, at the police academy, we teach them everything, but we don't include CJCs and restorative justice in the curriculum. And I think down the road, I think we need to start doing that. This past year and a half with the pandemic, a lot of our cases have been referred to. Our state's attorney, gave us some marching orders and some direction which she wanted to refer there. And they're misdemeanor offenses, not the felonies, but it puts a larger burden on our CJCs. But, you know, again, it allows more maybe dialogue between the officers, a better understanding. And I think we need to start that in our police academies if we want to offer restorative practices. You know, some states don't even have this. And, you know, somebody who messes up in high school or college and ends up with a criminal record, that stays with them. You know, we kind of get that process where we don't want them to go to the courthouse right off the bat. Let's try to restore and get them understanding. So something that we should, you know, look at a broader picture than just an isolated with the tunnel vision and all that.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And for Chief Foley and Chief Burke, how do your officers learn about restorative justice, and what does buy-in look like for your officers participating or at least referring cases into restorative justice models?
I think what it is like I said, that, you know, they learn it from us when they show up here, get sworn in. And I think we need to have a better understanding from our academies what the role is. You know, I have a group of older officers and I have a group of younger officers. So the older officers kind of like understand the process, but this has only been for here, I think, with 2014. It's been operational here in Williston, I think, 2014. I think so. It's only been seven years. But I think, you know, the officers think it's a great opportunity. I think they have more of a say now. You know, the old way of doing business was, you know, you either, you know, handcuff somebody, lock them up for the night, or send paperwork over, and they show up to court 3-4 weeks down the road. And that's it, unless they go to court. This way it gives us a better understanding that, you know, you want to help this person, but you have a better say in it by going the restorative way.
I guess I'll echo a little what Chief Foley has remarked on. It truly comes down from leadership and messaging this in the right way. This is not a get out of jail free card. This is a process with rigor. This is a process that ensures a great deal of accountability, and also a commitment that, you know, the responsible party needs to make that's far greater than just navigating typical prosecution in the fear of, you know, fines or probation or incarceration. And I think that, you know, the success here has been once an officer refers a case and gets involved in the process and sees how beneficial this process is and how effective this process is, you see those same officers making referrals. And then if those officers happen to be your field training officers, you will see their trainees making those referrals. There is a bit of a generational component to this, like Chief Foley said. You know, some of the more senior staff have had that positive experience. Others have not even engaged. And, you know, some of that will, you know, kind of be flushed out through reform and retirement. But I think, to the Chief's point about getting some level of education and awareness of restorative practice and how the CJCs function in our communities across the state of Vermont at the Academy will be really, really powerful.
And Sydney, if I could add a little bit to that, the officer who's in charge of the field training, we've been trying to set up times for the new officers while they're in field training to meet with us, talk with us about what the Community Justice Center does, and observe processes. We haven't totally gotten that in place yet, but we are working on that. That's just part of the system, that that becomes part of the field training. There's a lot of demands on those times, so it hasn't happened always, but we're trying.
One thing that I would share, Sydney, that's I think it's unique to Williston. I can't say for sure, but one thing that we have done is we've actually, you know, gone out and trained all of the police departments in which we work with and serve, and as a result, we've actually got 3 members of law enforcement who actually serve as volunteers on our panels, not in their role as a police officer, but in their role as being a citizen. And it's really changed the way that they police and the way that they think about cases and referrals. And it really has strengthened, I think, you know, again, those greater relationships with people that maybe they might not have taken the same amount of time to get to know or to think about from the lens of kind of what happened, why it happened, what's the backstory, you know, what are some of those pieces of someone's life and story that they're bringing into their current behaviors. And so it's really shifted, I think, a lot of the view of the law enforcement members who are serving in that role.
That's wonderful. So not only are you all doing great work now, but there's so much more to be done and so much excitement coming in with these new groups of police officers who are hopefully continuing to use this process, as well as making it a bigger part of their role, making sure that they're utilizing this wonderful system that you all have created. So thank you all for being here today and sharing some of the work that you're doing and some of your experiences with working with the CJCs, working in the CJCs, as well as just with the community at large and the impact that it's had.